the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What's a pity? Tomorrow never certain. What draws behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble from LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. Hey, I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Hey man, you're muted. That's all right, man. Everybody gets one.
Everybody gets one. You're on the iPad today?
I am, until my computer stops updating.
Oh, seems like your computer's been updating for a week now.
Oh, well, that was my internet last time.
Okay.
We over here struggle streaming.
We're struggle streaming already. So. What was I saying? Okay. I was saying that, look, we're going to talk about something today, which is some can consider a sin, a way of missing the mark, right? We're talking about pride. It's one of the 7 deadly sins. And we started out our conversation about getting ish done. And ladies and gentlemen, since I was muted when I was welcoming you all to another episode of Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder, welcome to another episode of Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. And what are we getting done today? We're going to nail down something which goes hand in hand with accomplishments, right? People do say, after all, take pride in your accomplishments. I'm proud of my accomplishments. I'm proud of my son's accomplishments, whatever it may be, right? We started out our conversations, our series of conversations many months ago, tackling the subject of sloth, right? The spiritual apathy that keeps you stuck on your bed and the inability to get up and go and get things done. And we really addressed that. And then moving forward, okay, we talked about the fact that greed is something that is part of the base instincts that the political order, the modern political order, is based on, right? The base instincts, that your instinct for survival, wanting to live and wanting to pursue this thing that they call happiness or property or whatever it may be. It seems like base stuff. There's nothing wrong with base stuff. As a matter of fact, it seems to be working quite well in founding our modern political dispensation. You don't go there for the higher things, which we described. Well, we did not describe the higher things. We just said there are other things that are higher. And we're yet to tell them what those things are, Dr. Thunder. But one day, one day we will. And if you recall, Dr. Thunder, we said that the sin of greed, for example, is, or shall we say, this particular kind of sin that is described by the 7 deadly sins is when your lower base needs obscures your vision towards things that are higher. Okay?
Yeah.
And can I get a one in the chat from Doug K. Coach and Aaron B? We got T. Riddler in the house. We got a number of people in the house. Does it make sense that when your lower base needs obscure things that are higher up in the priority list, and this could be even a pragmatic priority list in terms of your future self and what's good for other people around you and something that actually works through time, that it becomes a sin, right? It's not that wanting food or wanting sex or wanting money is a sin, right? But it becomes greed, lust, right? And avarice and all those other kinds of things and gluttony when they obscure your broader, higher vision. And broader and the higher things, we're not quite clearly defined yet. We're not going to do that in this stream either. But guess what, Dr. Thunder? Pride is not that easy. Pride is not one that takes that form, because guess what? People put pride in a positive context, do they not? They say, hey, as I already mentioned, be proud of X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to start by saying this, and I want to see what you think about it, Dr. Thunder. If we follow the same shape of saying, hey, you know what? We know that pride is necessary in order for you to take a firm stance in the world, take a position, right? We talked about the need for not being a fence sitter about certain things, right? A few streams back, right? So if you're going to take a stand, if you're going to take a position, if you're going to have an identity, then those things are quite adjacent with the idea of pride, right? But if you were to follow the same shape of this thing called pride now obscuring other things, is it the case perhaps that pride may obscure your ability to be empathetic or sympathetic, or maybe make it difficult for you to even repent, own up to mistakes and things like that? Could we start from there in an attempt to unearth what exactly it is? When does pride become a sin? Pride is something that is very important. We talk about national pride, being a proud black man, a proud citizen, that kind of a thing. And it's almost a spiritual good when it's said in these ways. So when does it become bad vis-a-vis this particular shape that I just said in terms of empathy and, shall we say, repentance, for example?
Yeah, I think part of the issue is that I'm not sure that the word means the same thing in both contexts.
Mm-hmm.
So pride in the negative sense, being, obviously an exaggerated view of yourself. Now, I would argue that there's not a stipulation on which direction that inaccuracy is as far as personal assessment. So those that are overly insecure, those that have low self-esteem, as it were, I would argue that that's a sort of pride also, because you're elevating your own view of things over God's view of things. You've made yourself, more important than God in some way. So there's that sort of pride. And then there's the sort of proud father, pride for country. And I'm not sure that that's as much about an exaggeration. Maybe it's more like saying some sort of confidence, or you know, being not satisfied, but valuing your people, or we're okay too, almost like uh, an assessment or an assertion of some sort of equality,
Hmm.
almost that.
There are three
So
things that I've noticed there. The first
sure.
thing is that regardless of what we're talking about, you seem to be in a sticky situation there. You didn't just rattle it off, whatever you're trying to say. In other words, we can acknowledge that there's some parsing out to be done here, some kind of
Yes.
difficulty, right? It is a good topic because it is a one of the list of sins, but at the same time, in regular parlance, it's something that is encouraged, right? So, what
Yes.
exactly is going on? And we'll get to it. I started out talking about the fact that it may obscure certain other things, and we may
Yeah.
get there. But you have mentioned something quantitative. You've said exaggeration. You've said too much. And that becomes tricky because, it's not like there's some measuring stick by which one can say, well, I think this is the right amount. You got about 6 inches worth of pride here. And if it becomes about 7.5, whoa, that's too much. Okay. Now, it's not so clear in that regard, but the third thing that I mentioned that I heard you say is the fact that people whom are lacking, I hear a little echo there, but people whom are lacking a certain sense of confidence. And shall we say, and we're not talking about people whom are clinically depressed or something like that, but people whom are morose about themselves are in a way raising themselves above the primacy of what is circumstances. They have become the most important thing in the universe, right? And their life is, and I think that your computer was, let's see, is this you, Dr. Thunder? Now you may be muted. I think you're muted.
All right, there we go.
All right. We've been struggle streaming the whole way. Okay, but let me go ahead and give Taboo Smash basically a recognition here for the $5 super chat. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this. And he says, arrogance can get you mess up in the game. I think he corrected himself down below. And do arrogance is similar to the grandiose, right? In other words, you guys are in the same line where you're thinking of something quantitative, something where it's like, it's too much. I am not so sure that we can get away with that. I'm not going to allow that in my court, sir. If you're going to get quantitative, you need to be more precise. And I don't think we have understood the map or the landscape enough to begin to pull out rulers. So let's go to the map first before we start to say, okay, you know what? So I want to stay qualitative for a second. And you said that I find it interesting that, someone whom is lacking, okay, a certain amount of pride in the good sense is also being prideful in the sense that they're the center of the universe, right? And they're navel gazing. And rather than just get along with the program, and they're being Cain in the story of Cain and Abel, right? They are not satisfied with the nature of existence itself. They think that, now I'm going to quote Jordan Peterson in this whole biblical series, right? In his elucidation and exegy, or whatever, whatever you theology people call it. How he was able to bring out that sin that Cain was guilty of, right? Kind of raising yourself up to a particular place, right? And it manifests itself as dissatisfaction, but it is indeed a sense of self-importance. Okay, so I find that interesting. Okay, but let me take a couple of steps further and go to a place about what you said with regards to proud of my achievements, proud of my son, proud of being a human being, that kind of a thing.
Proud of country.
Yeah, exactly. Is it the case, perhaps, that pride should not be applied to the global sense of self, right? That person, that Cain person whom is complaining that, oh my God, the world is against me and all that kind of stuff, or the guy who walks in thinking that they're on top of the world, the sin that both of them are committing is they have this global view of themselves, and they are going to ascribe a certain amount of importance to it. Now, if you're not doing it globally, what are you doing it? I'm saying doing it local. Do it locally. Do it in terms of your accomplishments. Say, I am proud that I was able to survive X, Y, or Z. I'm proud that I was able to achieve A, B, and C. But the minute I say I am proud just to be, then I'm taking myself away from the reality that I'm just a speck, okay, in the grand scheme of things, and somehow kind of layering a big picture thing on it. And I have pragmatic reasons, by the way, why this is wrong. But I want to see if we can at least agree that perhaps there is a local versus global thing. You're saying that it's a question of exaggeration. I'm saying that it is not a gradual scale. I'm saying it's a 0 or 1 thing, and that 1 is bad and 1 is global. 0 is when you're in the local spaces. And that's how I will begin to quantify it. Does this, am I making any sense, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, I mean, what is it? What does it say? Pride goes before the fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fall before destruction, right? So it does seem that, in one sense, you're either proud in the negative sense, as I suggested earlier. You're either proud or you're not. And then maybe in my terms, you either have an exaggerated view of yourself or you don't.
Hold on 1 second. Is it just me, the chat? Is it just me, or is Dr. Thunder's audio choppy? It sometimes is my headset. But can I get a 1 in the chat if you can hear Dr. Thunder clearly, or is it just me? Or let us know if the audio quality is rocking and rolling. Can I get some?
All right, I'm gonna leave out and come back in because you've been choppy the whole time. So I think it's just my system.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm gonna leave it out and I'm gonna come back in.
Gotcha. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we are been talking about some of the deadly sins. They just kind of came up incidentally or coincidentally, surreptitious by serendipity, I should say, in our conversations about getting ish done. And we understand that the base needs are a good way of founding a political order. Okay. Now, it may not be the kind of political order that Eisen likes. Eisen wants to found a political order based on the lofty things such as the good, the true, and the beautiful. But that's not the political order we're in. We're in the political order of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which means my stomach and my desire to chase whatever it is I'm chasing. And if we say we agree to stay away from each other's way in the pursuit of my stomach and whatever it is I'm chasing, then we can all come up with what we call rights. Okay? Rights are based on what? On an imagination that says, hey, you're in the state of nature. What exactly is it do you want? What exactly don't you want somebody else to do to you? You don't want somebody else to chop your head off. You don't want somebody else to put you in prison. You don't want somebody else to block your pursuit of property, which we've changed into happiness, right? Life, liberty, pursuit of property. And using base needs and base desires is a good way of making sure that people are in order. As a matter of fact, we are rewarded after all. Like men, they want to rule kingdoms. And we say, hey, you know what? We'll give you a little family to rule over if you follow the rules of the little tribe here. Women want to have a high value man. Okay. And we say, okay, if you're this kind of a woman, okay, whatever GC's, shout out to Game Changer in the chat. Is it younger child? Man, I forgot, younger, hotter, sexier, childless, or something like that. Whatever it is, and if you're behaving or if you're fit, feminine friendly, whatever it is, we will give you your base desires. In other words, as founding of a political order, base desires work very well. Now, I noticed that one of the deadly sins, pride, is one that is not very well understood in the language, because within the language, people are told to be proud. I'm proud to be an American. Well, at least I know I'm free. Ain't that right? Right? All that kind of stuff. Be proud of your work. Be proud of your family. Be proud of your heritage. Be proud of your achievements. Be proud. Be proud. Be proud. It becomes almost a spiritual height in and of itself. So when does pride become a bad thing? And as we begin to discuss, we find that it's a thicket in here. It's a little choppy in here. It's not very clear. Dr. Thunder put something on the table which says there's an exaggeration aspect of it. And I say, exaggeration makes it seem as though it was a continuum. That if I had 6.75 ounces of pride in myself, then that's fine. But if I have 8.2, no. I don't think that's how it is. I think it's more of a case of local versus global, in the sense that I should be proud of things that I do, things that I accomplish, things that are discrete. But the minute I start taking this kind of proud in my global sense of self and identity, then things break down. Now, what do I mean by that? And Dr. Thunder will join us shortly. Let me see here. I think he just sent me a text. Yeah. Okay. And here's the thing. Your sense of self, your identity is a construct that is made up of different markers. Okay? Your sense of self, Doug, your sense of self, Rorona in the chat, Aaron B, and so on and so forth, Eisen, it is a construct that is made up of things, a lot of which sometimes you choose to put there and other things you remove. One of them, okay, is your story that you were born into, the story that gave you your name. I call it the native story, right? You were born to Mrs. Thunder, the elder, or whatever, right? And you're born a black man. And therefore, in this world of a narrative, you now have been written down. In other words, you could have been born in Mars, a green man, okay? And over there, being born there, being green, there's another story over there. And you completely, hook, line, and sinker, inculcate that story into your identity, which it didn't have anything to do with you. And then as time goes on, there's autobiographical parts of your life which you choose to put in and things which you choose to leave out, right? You're going to choose to identify with the fact that you're a musician, some abstract person out there, rather than, he's not going to identify with the fact that he's a band, a Bravo Alpha November, a bitch ass nigga. But he's going to be like, you're going to pick and choose things in this identity bag, okay? Now, the point is this. If you decide to be prideful of that whole identity bag, you are open to attack and you're brittle and you're weak. Now, before we go down, I want to see if this is clear in any way to the chat. Can I get a 1 in the chat if this notion that I'm saying, which is that if you have global pride in the global self, then you are weak? Is that clear? Is that something that we can work with? Is that something that we can maybe see? And what is the brittleness? Where does it come from? In other words, Dr. Thunder, if you're proud of your saxophone playing, one could attack it, one could test it, we could weigh it, right? But who could stand the scrutiny? If you are now proud of being Dr. Thunder, we know that does not hold up. Am I striking a nerve there in the sense of this local, global, and the fact that if it is global, you are weak?
Yeah. So if you need the global thing, then it's as if you are not capable of standing on your own 2 feet. You need the group to sort of boost your value. Your I don't know. It's like becoming some sort of super sports fan. You know, the success of the team is your success. Or video games or something. I've created this huge universe and all of these, all of these characters and things, and I'm seeing their lives develop, right? But if your console stops working, all of that's gone, and it's not real. None of it's real, and none of it's you, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, so I see that. Um, the Okay, so we're talking about. I had another point I was going to make.
Mm.
Rephrase the first part of your question there.
The idea is this: you have an identity, right? A self, a collection of many different parts, but that when it becomes a global thing, it's almost like that synergy thing where it's like it becomes more than the sum of its parts, right? You're not just A, B, C, 6 foot tall, this, that, the other collection of some data. And if you're proud of your accomplishments, things that can be tested and weighed, fine. But if you become proud of the global thing, it does not work because it cannot stand up to scrutiny. It leaves you brittle. You can be attacked in that point of your ego. Did you get the
Yeah,
point that you were trying to make?
yeah. So because of the terminology, some of these terms are being used in different ways. With what I'm about to say, it may not seem on the surface as if it's the same thing, but something that I tell my students frequently um, is that there's no such thing as regional excellence.
Mhm.
There's no such thing as regional excellence. I can't take um, I can't take pride in uh, being the best in a certain locale. Uh, several issues. One of the issues is that uh, we live in a global. Everything is global now. Um, so what it is that we're doing right now, anyone around the world can access. Well, as long as they have an internet access. We know there are certain places of the world where that's not the case. But uh, the limitation is not based on location. So that whole regional excellence thing is just not a real thing, right? You're either good or you're not good. You're either excellent or you're not excellent. And that sort of is, I think, making the point that you were talking about, that if you require this sort of regional banner to somehow bolster your claims or to add value where there is none, then yeah, that's a sign of weakness. You require that sort of um, uh, what's the a buffer or whatever. You require that hedge or whatever it is,
Mhm.
um, to protect your pride. So I've used this word about 5 or 6 different ways so far. Um,
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean that's what we do over here. There are words out there, and the thing about these words, okay, is that they're very important. What I mean by those words, I mean every word is very important. Words are very important. Language is very important because that's the means of thinking, and we know what, shall we say, dysfunctional thinking can cause. a lot of mental disorders, if they're not congenital or shall we say due to some kind of brain injury or something like that, okay, chemical imbalance, as some people would like to say, are due to people's delusional thinking, okay? And a lot of times people get mixed messages, okay? And if you're not in the habit of cleaning up your language, cleaning up the words, knowing exactly what you mean, okay? Like I did a stream the other day saying men are useless. And people are like, oh, what do you mean by that? And I defined exactly why it is the case that, hey, you know, if you're focusing on what exactly it is that men used to do before within the family context, that has changed. Now it is up to us to maybe evolve, level up, become useful again in particular contexts and so on and so forth. But if you still think and use words in a particular way, you keep saying protection and provision as though it meant something else, which it no longer means, then you're gonna end up in all kinds of struggles, arguing with strags out there. Okay, but let's back.
You got to say the
back
whole thing. You have to say the whole
straggle
thing. That
daggle.
was yes, there it is.
Straggle daggle. The daggle out there. The maggle arguing with the daggle out there is mainly due to a lot of people not understanding words and so on and so forth. But we have stumbled upon one here, which is this pride thing. And I like that you are staying within this lane of people who need a buffer, people who need, shall we say, are overcompensating. That is a sign of weakness. Okay?
Yeah.
But don't you also agree that having that, you said pride comes before the fall, and that thing is not some kind of chronological thing that, oh, you get pride and then you fall. It means that it literally for me means you have literally exposed yourself when you have that global pride, because it is like having, let me use another word, an ego, right? And ego is another word, by the way. Maybe we'll tackle that one, because ego is another one of those words, okay? Because it does not mean one thing. It means a whole book, right? It is an arrangement of your soul vis-a-vis external things. The external things that have to be true, internal things that have to be true, relationships that have to be true between the external and the internal, so on and so forth. So what I'm saying is this. If you, Dr. Thunder, are proud of something that I'm saying is good to be proud of, which are the shall we say, these local things, as in like, okay, I'm going to be proud of my accomplishment. It is a part of my identity. So I can put it in my pocket and I can swagger about it, right? Because, yeah, I'm a great saxophone player. I can hold my own. I do my practices. I put in the work. I got a little bit of swagger about it. But when you take that to, I'm proud of being Dr. Thunder, you can be chopped down very easily, because someone can someone could pull your card, as they say, right? It is hard for me to pull your card in the saxophone because you can show me, right? You can show me. Right. We can weigh it. We can compare. So to the point that Taboo Smash is making here, which when he says, therefore, should we not just look at things like I'm born with something? No, those things can be pulled. Those things are too contextual. They're too in the story that you did not create. I was born a white man to this family of XYZ. What the hell did you do to do that? As I said, you could be born in Mars, a green man. Okay, and then what's your story, right? The point is this: the things that could be measured, weighed, localized, the accomplishments, so on and so forth, those things you can be strong in. But the minute you have a global pride in this global self and you're now grandiose, that bubble can be deflated. And that's why you are weak. That's why pride comes before the fall. Ain't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so having okay, so the ego thing.
Mm-hmm.
So ego is not all bad. Ego takes a lot of licks.
Mm-hmm.
But ego is actually not all bad, and it actually requires ego for you to make any kind of movement forward. Actually, it takes ego to move backwards too. Takes ego to do everything and anything. But when people usually start talking about ego, it's because there's something seems to be out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
It's too much of something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the term conceit or conceited,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes folks that tend to be very much introverts, sometimes take that moniker for not necessarily good reasons.
Yeah, you mean you've been accused of being conceited all your life, just like me, huh?
Well, the thing is like, if you're actually trying to get stuff done, trying to
Mm-hmm.
get ish done, and you don't really have time to like hang out and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you're walking, like when I'm walking, I'm, enjoying the weather's nice, and going for a stroll is okay, I suppose. But that's like never the reason why I'm walking. I'm always walking, going somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's with a purpose. It's not. There's no meandering. There's no lackadaisical. I'm going straight to where I'm going, and often is the case is that people may think that I'm not approachable because I'm going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes people can have perceptions that obviously are not. They're not legitimate. They're not right. I'll take 50% responsibility for how I'm perceived, but I'm not going to take 100%. I'm not going to take 100%, and no one should take 100%. And maybe taking 50% is too much.
Maybe it's too much. Before we go further, you mentioned ego. You've again said that it reeks of something too much, of an exaggeration, and also an imbalance. And then you went to a side of it which has to do with the external world looking at it perhaps wrongly. In other words,
I want it to be I want it to be quantitative so badly.
Yeah, you're trying to be quantitative, but first you got to have the. But so it's like the cat, right? The cat. I remember explaining it to a kid like this once, right? Again, because I'm who I am, and based on who I am, people just think I'm conceited, prideful, arrogant, even, or like Ike, you were so arrogant in the whole relationship. So,
you've heard this before. So this is not like you're not just picking thoughts. You're not just picking random things. You're like reliving some
100%,
even there.
Deep trauma. Oh yeah, my family, my siblings. I'm the last of 6, right? My siblings, cousins. Oh, well, go ahead.
Hey, you have a simp tale for us, man?
Oh, a simp tale? Oh yeah, well yeah, like, well, why, well, for all have simped and fallen short of the glory. Now, it's one of those situations where you are who you are. You, in other words, I don't necessarily look at myself as being a prideful, arrogant person, but I'm a thinker, and I kind of take stances. And when I say I'm a thinker, I'm not saying other people don't think. I'm saying that I tend not to care about your feelings. I'm juxtaposing thinking with feelings here, right? So that's what I'm saying. And also I'm a thinker, right? In that other sense too. Right? Therefore, there are going to be positions that I'm going to take on things, and so on and so forth. And they don't necessarily care so much about your feelings. And then when within the course of a relationship, the lady is trying to get you to soften up on some of these things. And it turns out that if you do soften up, that is when it all blows up anyways, right? But
it never works, man. I'm reliving some traumas, man.
Yes. So shout out to the INTJ gang. Yes. You're gonna be perceived as arrogant. That's just how it is. And it's not. You say 50%. I'm taking like 0% on that part. On the whole, just my personality. If you view my if you think I should be like you, again, what I told the kid was this. I was like, it's more like most people are dogs, and that's fine. I'm not saying dog in a bad way. They're social, right? An INTJ is like a cat. And there's something about cats, especially when the dogs look at them. The cats, I mean, the dogs think that the cat is thinking about them and thinking that he's better than them. I'm like, I'm not really thinking. You get what I'm saying, Dr. Thunder?
Right.
Right?
The cat's not even thinking about the dog. That's
The
right.
cat is not thinking about the dog. Okay. I'm just being over here being a cat. And they're like, oh, look at him. He thinks it's so much better. Why doesn't he come over there? Why doesn't he have time to hang out with us? You think what you're doing is so important? All that dog shit. Right? And it gets to the point where, to be honest, the cat starts building some perhaps justified resentment towards the dogs. Because I'm just over here doing my thing. And you freaking little stupid mammals over there. But anyways, that's woosah, as they say.
Well, let me tell you. So this issue that you bring about softening up, women want you to soften up. Now, let me qualify this by saying, I think that there are a limited number of things that you can soften up with the right person.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is that there are very, very few of those right persons.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like there's a bunch of them. And it's not even like because you're in a relationship with someone that's the right person to do that with.
Mm-hmm.
So, most folks can't handle that.
Yes.
And so you have to know a little bit about what the person's capabilities are. I remember
Because the
when I
worst
was,
thing, what you're saying is like the worst thing is when you're someone like yourself, and then you decide to soften up in one particular regard, and then it gets used against you, right?
oh right,
It gets misunderstood and used against you. It's kind of like it's like you can almost understand why some people just decide to become emperors and just conquer these little beasts. You're like, you damn freaking, I was doing my thing, I wasn't bothering you, and how dare you? Anyways, yeah, this is a touchy spot for me because it's just one of those things that really does get to me. People are just like thinking that you should be more like them, or that you're thinking about them, or that you think you're better than them. I'm like, nigga, right? Anyways,
right. I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about the stuff that I have to do.
exactly.
I have a lot of stuff to do, and I have a lot of there's a lot of responsibility. This is just a lot of stuff that I'm thinking about. I don't have time to think about you.
And you don't try to tell them to go do stuff with you too, right? And this is the worst part. The worst part is the imbalance for me. Is I don't go around telling people, "Oh, you should be doing this too. Why don't you come do this stuff with me? Why don't we go to the?" No, right? But
Right.
they want to tell you what the hell you shouldn't be doing, and that
Right.
what you're doing makes you.
Look. You saw what the thumbnail said, and you clicked on it. That was your choice. That's now you're going to get upset because it is as advertised, and they're saying the sorts of things that you already knew they were going to say.
Mhm.
Yeah. So sometimes people just want to be offended. When I was in college, and I was dating this older lady, She was quite a bit older than I was, and I was at that point in time, I was pretty, and I realized because I was pretty young, I was pretty preachy probably, and she was living with her girlfriend who also liked girls, and so she was you know sharing all her views about X, Y, and Z, and all of this, and I was pretty you know um resolute, and then uh, it, and then I don't know, I just start simping hard. I just you know I wanted what I wanted. The what is it? The body wants what the body wants. I was going to say heart, but that just is silly. Um, and so I'm simping all over the place, and then I just started acquiescing a bunch of stuff that I said, nah, I wouldn't be into this. Nah, I wouldn't be into that. No, I'm not the kind of person that does this. I'm not the kind of person that does that. And then I'm just like not doing I'm like changing on all of that stuff. And I remember she says to me, and this was just like, and I think about this even today, and it makes me cringe. But it's a reminder. She says, you know, you're just you're just a lot more malleable than I thought you were. And I was like, oh, that's like a dagger to the heart, man. Malleable. In other words, she
Damn.
could shape me in any way she wanted to.
With a mallet. Put you
Oh
over
my
the
goodness.
anvil and boom. Interesting.
But
So
but but
go
to
ahead.
the to the point about people, because you're about business, um, the conceit stuff, it's like purposely misinterpreting your actions and the stuff that you say and all of that kind of crap. Um, the I think people, because so many people are deeply insecure and dissatisfied with their life
Mm-hmm.
and with the people that are in it, with
Mm-hmm.
their job, with their family, with everything, since they're so dissatisfied, when they see someone that is confident,
Mm.
actually confident, and walking in the thing that they're supposed to be doing, it's like
Yeah.
it's like kryptonite.
Yeah, it's
They
something
can't touch
that
it.
all my life I've thought about this exact same thing you said. That's why I was like, yeah, that thing. It's almost like you gotta hide your zest for life from people.
Right,
It's like you
right.
gotta like hide the fact that you're actually comfortable here on this earth doing shit from people with their unsatisfied, crappy little lives, right? And what you're saying is not that, it's not that I don't wake up in the morning scared, like, oh my God, am I going to be able to close this deal? Oh my God, am I going to be able to pull this all nighter tonight and be kind of sharp enough for the meeting in the morning? No, it's not that we don't feel these things. It's that
Right.
that's not how we're moving in the world. And it's not, it's just like, there's friction in the world, right? So that's friction. We don't focus on the friction. It's just like, okay, well, I got to just keep on pushing past the friction. There's going to be some heat generated and some discomfort, okay? And I deal with the heat and the discomfort, okay? But for the people, and this is the vast majority of people, this is how people are, okay? That for whom the world, life is just this burden, this chore. And then the only thing to do is to drink and watch Game of Thrones and anesthetize yourself in other ways in order to be okay. And also then come together in your warm little cocoons of like feeling together. And if they see you, they see that cat, again, they see the cat, these dogs, okay? They see that cat over there just kind of doing its thing. They're like, who the hell does he think he is? Okay? So since forever, I've always kind of thought that, like, why is it that people cannot just be okay, and they're not okay when you're okay, you know? And again, it's not that, again, as I said, I like to say that I wake up every morning scared. And what I mean by the scared is actually a sensation. I don't mean it's actually a sensation of, because I know I have things to do. I have things to do. And until I get up and start moving, there's kind of like a, oh my God, you know, there's that you will open up your eyes and you're kind of laying in bed. You're like, oh my God. And then I get up and you stretch and then the fear goes away. So I have the existential angst too, just like everybody else, right? But anyways, let's go back to your ego thing, okay? Because ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about pride. We're talking about pride, and we went into the, shall we say, the psychosocial and very social dynamics of it is what we were talking about right now. From a very first-person perspective, lived, experienced perspective, when someone is called arrogant, when someone is seen as arrogant, we're looking at how some people tend to be looked at. But let's go back to ego. You say ego is good for getting anything done. The visual that comes to mind is you need a fixed point, a fulcrum, something solid to push, right? Or pull in the world. And that thing will be your ego, your center, your identity, your stance on something, right? That is needed. Now, when people say ego, I think typically they need to add ego problem. And they tend to say that sometimes, right? So I think that should be the right phrase. Not that that is the beginning of the elucidation of what people mean by ego being bad. Okay, and it's related to this whole pride thing again, which we'll kind of circle back to here because they're obviously adjacent. We see them, but the ego problem is the thing, not the ego, and the ego problem, in my view, comes with unconsciousness. Okay? It comes with, and I'm not going to go deeper, I'm going to want to see your reaction to just my words. It comes with a lack of self-awareness. Am I hitting at something here? And could you kind of elaborate on that a little bit or have any thoughts about that? The fact that the ego is not a bad thing, that there is an ego problem, and that what is happening is not some just one static thing. It's a dance that's happening where there is a lack of consciousness, and which we could use in the regular parlance called lack of self-awareness. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. The self-awareness thing, it's easy to become very selfish if you're not self-aware. So that's so that ends up being, one of the bigger problems. One of the bigger problems with that. And what do they say? I is at the center of sin. And some of that stuff is just stuff to say, but there is something. There is something about not understanding who you are, where you're going, who you need to ally with, all of that kind of stuff that I think would exacerbate any ego problem.
Let's put context in terms of if we use the examples of things that are perhaps said in these YouTube streets, for example. Let's say we take, because ego tends to lead to people being delusional, people shifting goalposts, right?
The ego problem leads to people being delusional.
Yes. My bad. So the ego problem, because I revert back to the shorthand, but I know what I'm saying, but let me not continue to
no. I know what you're saying. I'm just teasing.
Yeah. I'm not going to perpetuate the confusion by. I'm going to keep on from now on. I'll say ego problem rather than ego. The ego problem, again, it's a behavior thing because people want to make it. Nothing is simple, and nothing is ever simple. As simple as you may see at first. People think they understand what they mean when they talk. They rarely ever do. But the ego problem comes with behaviors, which is the external stuff. And then there's an internal state, which we can all recognize. Can I get a 1 in the chat? I want to make sure that everyone is following. We know the external manifestations of ego problems, okay? There's delusion, there is shifting of the goalpost, there is the need to be right. But do we understand that there is an internal state which is quite unconscious? What do I mean by unconscious? It cannot remove itself from the feelings and the rush of images that's going through its head at that moment. It cannot separate itself from the fact that it's been triggered, right? That's the unconsciousness. You are caught in a storm of feelings and images in your head. And you are literally like an unconscious whirlwind, just kind of doing its thing. You're just now chemistry and physics happening. No one's home. The ego problem has that internal state, and then there's an external manifestation. So now that we're able to kind of draw this map, let's look at this delusional person. Maybe it's a guy, okay? Or maybe it's a woman. And let's go to the sexual marketplace. These are things that we're all kind of aware of, right? Oh, yeah, we know this. Like, yeah, we know our red pill 10 commandments and our, oh, yeah.
That's right. Bring it home.
Yes, like we bring it home when we talk about the delusion and all kind of stuff in the sexual marketplace. Like, yeah. We get it. So a non-egotistical woman whom is a 6 versus a woman that does not have an ego problem. That's a 6 versus a woman that has an ego problem. That's a 6. The difference is in the internal state and the external states. The one that does not have an ego problem is self-aware, meaning they know they're a 6 and they can separate whatever feelings attached to that, oh, I'm a 6 thing. You know, I know I'm susceptible to skin cancer, for example. And maybe there's whatever it is that is not quite, shall we say, you were dealt a particular kind of card that was not the best, okay? There's a feeling associated with it. We never transcend that. Until we die, there's still going to be a feeling and a thought that comes with it. Would you agree, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, I think that tends to be true.
So, but the difference is the woman that's a 6, that knows she's a 6, when she feels that 6 feeling or whatever, I'm not the it girl, that feeling, she can observe it, right? She can see it and say, okay, I'm a 6, or oh, I'm 5'4" as a man, right? I think the 6 versus the short man, I think those would be good juxtapositions. Yeah. Good. So we're all back at home now. We all know what we're talking about. So the man who is 5'4",
or you're 5'4" and a quarter woman that weighs more than a man.
The thing about the weight thing is that it can always be changed. So it's like it has a, I'm talking about something that's hard there, that there's nothing you could do about it. But when you are self-aware internally, you will manifest behaviors such that you get better outcomes overall. Because when you are 5'4", and rather than accept it and say, you know what, maybe I'm going to get my money up, get my game up. Oh, he said game. Maybe I'm going to get my game up. I'm going to get my productivity up. Maybe I'm just going to ignore the sexual marketplace, which, by the way, when you tend to ignore things, they tend to circle right back to you, right? In other words, you're going to look at the chessboard and say, okay, cool. I cannot go through that door, but where are the windows, right? It takes self-awareness. It takes being present. It takes the ability to get out of that whirlwind of, oh, I'm a 6 now, therefore I'm going to be defensive. Because defensiveness, delusions, shifting goalposts need to be right. Those are all manifestations of the ego problem, right? And the ego problem, again, internal, has that whole lack of awareness. You're caught in your feelings. And externally, you're manifesting these bad behaviors. That's what people see, right? When they see that, you mentioned that there's a sense of imbalance, okay? That exaggeration and imbalance is a result of that internal state. Is it not, Dr. Thunder? Or would you disagree or want to nuance it a little bit or something to add to that point?
I think it's totally right. and I've been on the fence a little bit about the show I'm going to do, when I was going to do the show, but part of this interaction is causing me to think I want to do it this Thursday. Thunder's Thoughts on Thursday, 9:30 p.m. But on Kevin's show last night, his monologue, one thing that he mentioned, which I hadn't heard him say, at least not in these particular terms, it was about makeup. And what he was saying is that you should require your girlfriend, your significant other, your wife, whatever, not to wear all of that makeup and stuff. You're just walking around and you don't have any enhancements. She should be doing the same thing. And the reason he said this, which I thought was it was an angle on this that I hadn't thought of, is that because of a lack of self-awareness, when women have all the makeup on and the fake eyelashes and the hair and all of that, every time they get a glimpse of themselves in the mirror, they're fooled. They're fooling themselves into what they look like. And so you're trying to have a relationship with them, and they don't have, they're overblown. They're bigger than they are. They're, everything is exaggerated in this sense. And so then it's going to make it hard to be able to have the sort of, the sort of interaction where she knows where she is and who she actually is and what she looks like, and and without all of the waist training and all of the other stuff that they do, she knows what she actually looks like, and she's got some humility about herself. Just like you would if you were walking around without being done up. And the thing is that men have an easier time with this problem than women, because we expect women to look beautiful, and there's all these ways for them to look to enhance that, whereas guys, we don't have the level of options. And even if we did, because we're men, we're going to tend to not want to do that, because we value stuff that's not surface level stuff.
Yeah, and if you're driving around in your fake Lamborghini with fake this and that and the other, and you have this kind of strange thing that projects you look like Superman, that would affect things. Now, I think that it is the case that because it's right in line, because you mentioned humility. It came up. Why did humility come up? Because, we're talking about pride. Okay. Now, a couple of things I'm going to say here. Number one, just so I can remember, is going to be about being spoiled as a result of genetic lottery. But then there's another thing, which is the particularities of sins. One of my favorite topics is how men and women are different in the ways they misbehave. Okay? Okay, and if somebody's wondering, well, why would men and women be different in the way they misbehave? It's like, well, duh, men and women are different. Okay, it's like, Jesus Christ. It's like, bicycles and motorcycles are different in the way they move. You're like, what do you mean? It's like, well, if you admit that they're different, and hey, we could have the conversation where maybe they're all the same. I'm willing to have any conversation about anything, because, as I said, I'm a thinker, right? All day, as long as you're thinking, right? Because you get slapped in the face if you come with your bullshit and your feelings. I hate that crap. Anyways, so the idea is, okay, if men and women are different, we have different strengths, okay, and a man can run around and hit you with a baseball bat, but a woman can ruin your life with her words and some of the social magic that she does, okay. then there are going to be different things, okay, that we need to watch out for. Speaking of sins, and can I get a 1 in the chat, okay? Just so that we're clear, can I get a 1 in the chat if women have to watch out for different sins than men have to watch out for? That, hey, you're a man, watch out for, don't do A, B, C, but if you're a woman, X, Y, Z are the things that you should watch out for, right? That a man can sin with his upper body strength and certain other things which we call kind of external violence, and a woman can sin with, well, what is she gonna? She needs to do something, right? She needs to maneuver in the world. So if you don't have that upper body strength, you're gonna use other means. So the things that we say, hey, we're gonna tell the woman to check, are different from the things that we tell a man to check. I've said all that just so that we understand what I mean here when I say that there are different kinds of sins that these two different sexes have to watch out for. And the sin of immodesty is a sin that is particular, something that women need to check, right? That it is I don't know how easy it is. I'm not a woman, okay? But I know that just watching the behaviors of average people, I'm talking about you over there in the chat, okay? Watching the behaviors of average people, it's quite easy for women to easily go to that, I'm the this and I'm the that and I'm a queen and I'm a that, you know? And there's a reason why. There's a social thing why. It is the equivalent of a man kind of beating his chest, but for that there's violence about to happen, and the violence is going to settle the things very quickly. But the thing is, it's hard to settle when you're calling yourself a queen bee. I'm calling myself a queen bee. How are we going to settle this? So it tends to run away very quickly, right? So that's something that. Anyways, go ahead, and I'll come back to my second point about people who have the genetic lottery and how they can be spoiled. And the reason that I bring it up is because when you're spoiled in this particular way, you can then become not self-aware, leading to the ego problem. Anyways, go ahead.
Right. It just reminds me of last night's show again, where there's the woman that calls in, and she had her name on her Zoom or whatever as diva. And I mean, look, I think that's a form of self, a lack of self-awareness. If you're calling yourself diva, but then you're trying to say that you are traditional, you're a traditional woman, you are subservient, you don't have some of the typical attitudes associated with calling oneself something like that as a woman. And yeah, that's it's just too bad. I mean, some stuff is just like so obvious. It's like, really? I mean,
yeah, and again, you're always gonna find out of the hat these people, especially when you have a great sampling size, as we have in watching these YouTube streams and so on and so forth, right? And in a show as big as Kevin's as well, right? So the point is, you're gonna get people who fall for the trap. And here's what the reason I also like to demarcate the difference between the way men sin and the way women sin, if you will, is because there are different checks that need to be put on them as well, in the sense that if you're gonna, you need the police and bars and physical violence restraining men from doing physical violence.
Yep.
How do you restrain the woman from doing the social things that make them, shall we say, either weak and ineffective? Because I like to shout out to Jordan Peterson. I'm a pragmatist. So when I talk about good and bad, before I go all the way to the top of Mount Olympus and start talking about the good and the true, I like to take pit stops at the fact that, hey, it's also pragmatically good, right, for you to do certain things. In other words, for you to get the outcomes that you want, you should not be immodest, right? That kind of a thing. Not just some kind of it is good thing. We can get there later. That stream, Dr. Thunder, that we're going to do at some point, we'll get there. But the idea is this. Let me go back to my whole thing about the spoiled. If you are indeed dealt some bad cards, if you are that, and by the way, everybody knows, okay, every man knows that adjustable sixes are the best for long-term relationships and stuff like that, okay? Partly due because of this self-awareness thing I'm talking about, okay? The adjustable six is great because statistically speaking, okay, we're smart people. We understand that statistically speaking, if you're just going to shoot a barrel full of adjustable sixes, right? The fact that the chances of you finding someone who is self-aware versus you're going to shoot a barrel of tens and find someone that's self-aware, what do you have to say about that? Am I making sense in the chat? Am I making sense? Okay.
Yeah,
the idea
I think the
is
percentage chance of hitting a self-aware 10 is about 0% chance.
oh, zero. I mean, come on, it can't be zero, Dr. Thunder. It's got to be something.
Okay, 0.000001.
Okay, good. Well, there you are. Okay, so the idea is this: we're talking about pride. We went to the ego. We talked about the ego and said that look, ego is just a thing. It's a word in the English language. But when we say ego, a lot of times we're talking about the ego problem, and we define the ego problem as having an internal facet and an external facet that go hand in hand. And that this external facet, when people see it as something that's kind of being off and imbalance, it comes with a lot of, shall we say, goalpost shifting, delusional, and people being caught because in the internal state, they're caught in their feelings, right? So we said, hey, if you're a man and you're 5'4", or you're a woman and let's say you're a 5, right? If you have enough self-awareness, okay, you're not going to have the ego problem because you're not going to be caught in the feelings that come up, which you'll never get rid of. Feelings that come up that say, I'm 5'4" as a man. When you can observe it, and by the way, this is not some woo thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about practically that unconsciousness is the cause of the ego problem. That when you are not conscious of the feelings that are arising in you when somebody says something, when somebody pushes your button, when somebody pushes that button, and then you're caught up in a storm of feeling, image, talk, as I like to say, your whole subjective consciousness is feelings in the body, image in the head, and talk in the head. When you get caught up in that thing and you no longer have the observer that watches stuff happen, but now you're just heartbeat and blood rushing and seeing red, and the goalpost is going all over the place, and you're delusional and you need to be right. That is what the ego problem is. And it has nothing to do with the fact that you actually have an ego or that you actually are proud, because as you said, you do need an ego to move things in the world. You do need a point of reference, a center, an identity, a place from which things move or pushed or pulled, right? So it's not a question of, I should become this kind of nothing. No. So shall we say, can we talk about humility then as self-awareness rather than what some people tend to think it is, which is, I'm nothing. Just slap me to the left and throw me in a bucket. Like, no. Is humility not closer to self-awareness then, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, I think that's an accurate assessment. I think okay, so one thing that comes to mind is when someone is really embarrassed, they might say, you humiliated me. They have been brought down low. Well, the thing is that you can't be brought down low if you were already down there. So and down there as in weren't already sort of exaggerating everything and puffing yourself up. You'd have no place to fall. So self-awareness in that sense is preventing that fall, and being humiliated wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, right? If you are already sort of right-sized and in your thinking. So, yeah.
So yes, ladies and gentlemen, let me start with my typical recapping, resweeping, because we started out a little confused. We started out saying, hey, there is this sin called pride that is 99 times referred to in a positive light. How's that possible? Don't be prideful. One of the 7 deadly sins, one of the ways in which you miss the mark, one of the ways in which you don't get the outcomes that you want, right? Then we have statements like, be proud of your achievements, be proud of whom you are, be proud of your family, be proud, be proud, be proud. Pride being this kind of a, hymnal book being sung to the heights. What exactly then is the issue here? We've talked about other of the issues before, such as with the sloth and the greed and the envy, and we say that these are base desires, and that the sin is when your base desires. Not that being hungry is bad. Having a stomach is not a bad thing. Okay, having a penis is not a bad thing. I think it's actually a pretty good thing. Oh my God, I crack myself up.
I'm pretty pleased with it. So
So it's not that having these, no, it's not that being an animal is a bad thing. It's that when they distract and obscure you from things which should have a higher priority. And again, before you go all the way up to the higher priority, the highest of priorities, there are priorities that have to do with things that work across time in terms of pragmatism. If your lust, okay, in other words, if your penis, okay, is stopping you from feeding your family, your penis is stopping you from being able to take care of yourself and, and be a useful human being across time, then it's a sin. Then you don't call it penis anymore. You call it lust, right? If your desire for food, which I love, I'm a great chef, if I may mention it myself, right? And I also enjoy what I cook and what I like to eat and so on and so forth, right? But if that thing becomes gluttony now, when I'm no longer effective or effectual because I've eaten all the food in the world and I'm now bloated and big and all that kind of stuff, then we call it gluttony. Okay, we don't just call it stomach anymore. So hence, that the shape that these sins tend to take is, lower desire, obscuring something which we could consider as higher. Then when we got to pride, though, it got a little weird. Like, we're like, whoa, what is lower about pride? Pride does not even have an organ associated with it. Right? Is it the heart? Is it, where is it? And it also seems to be adjacent with all these things that we tend to we associate with good. However, we're able to point out one thing, and so far about 3 things. But the first thing we pointed out is that when you are proud of your accomplishments, it's a good thing. But when you are proud of your global self, it becomes arrogance. And why is arrogance bad? Because your bubble can be popped. Your card can be pulled. It cannot withstand scrutiny. In other words, we use the example of Dr. Thunder being proud of something that he accomplished, like the fact that he's a tenured professor or that he plays, is a great saxophone player or something like that. That's something that you can test. You can weigh it. You can challenge it, and it can stand up to scrutiny. But when you stand there on top of Mount Olympus saying that I am nobody can withstand that, because you're just a speck of nothing in the universe at the end of the day. So pride is a question of being, quote unquote, or the pride problem, right? The pride problem is when, rather than being, shall we say, self-satisfied and happy with accomplishments, you are self-satisfied and happy with this kind of vague notion of yourself, which, by the way, is a construct, right? What is this Dr. Thunder thing, okay, that you have in your head and that you're quote unquote proud of, and that it makes you weak because your card can be pulled, the bubble can be popped. And then we went into the whole ego thing, which is an adjacent thing, and we said that the ego problem has to do with unconsciousness within, because you're caught in the feelings, right? And then the outward manifestations which people see and then call it the ego, right? What they see is somebody flailing, trying to make sure that they maintain this sense of global pride, right? That, I think, is what came out of the conversation so far, right? So,
Yeah.
I don't know if you had anything to add, because there was something add with regards to this. With regards to pride blocking your ability to be empathetic, sympathetic, to be repentant, right? To soften up a little bit, right? that this lack of and maybe it's a different dimension in this particular case, in the sense that if you're proud, is it necessarily the case that then you are not so it's not so easy for you to relate to people? What I'm asking you and I, Dr. Thunder, now is to be more self-aware. Let's go back to our whole INTJ talk of being very go-getting type people. You said when you're walking somewhere. You're not just taking a casual stroll. I describe myself as being a cat, right? Where I am not very, I'm an introverted doer type. Okay, I like to get ish done. I don't have time to be talking to you. Most of you are stupid, anyways. Okay, not you guys in the chat or in the channel. But yeah, most people are stupid. I have no issue saying that. The numbers bear it out. People's behavior
Now
also
get
bears
those
it out.
super chats up.
O'Shea, yeah, shout out to O'Shea Duke Jackson. Oh, y'all dusty Negroes out there better. But the idea is this: when we're doing our juggernaut thing, is it not the case though that because we've kind of said how they annoy us with everybody's accusing us of thinking that we're better than them and how dare we and so on and so forth. But is there not something? Let's be self-aware now. Is there not something that we should watch out for? We talked about sinning and things that different people should watch out for dependent on their nature, right? It is our nature to be very task-driven, very goal-focused, crazy type people, right? Is there not something that people are seeing about perhaps our inability to connect with them, to be empathetic? Is there not something about that cat that I describe myself as being, walking alone out there on the ledge while the dogs are playing together? Is there not something that do the dogs not have a point, Dr. Thunder?
So something I found interesting, and I had never thought of myself as being like a cat before, but I think that's a good description. The dogs are all hanging out together, and I'm over by myself and not paying attention to what they're paying attention to. I also wonder if, because I'm like a cat, that's why I can't stand cats. And I much prefer dogs, because you know what a dog is going to do. They're very predictable. And my dog, for instance, my dog's name's Coltrane. And he greets me at the door all the time. He
A love supreme. Sorry.
that's right. That's right. That's right. And so that's kind of an interesting sort of thought. Wait a minute. I had something I was going to say.
Let me restate my thing, and then it usually reminds you.
Yeah.
Because again, the whole idea is this. Like, I think that, and perhaps let me do my whole live in real time self-awareness thing. I think it must be the case, just thinking logically, that there is a coldness to me. There is a stoicism to me that will, whether I'm intentionally doing it or not, the effect is real on others. They're going to think and they're going to feel like I'm unapproachable. And in fact, I am unapproachable. That is the definition of unapproachable. And when they come to me with certain kinds of feelings, and I'm like, get the hell out of here. I'm trying to chase the next 50K in the next 3 weeks or something.
Right.
There's something that, and I'm like, yeah, I'm working 16-hour days and I'm doing this and that. And they're like, damn, like, how can I even talk to you about my regular stuff? And you're just over here, just you're crazy, Ike, right? Isn't there something to it? I don't know. Did you remember your point now?
Yeah. So the empathy sympathy thing. I try to use the word empathy more than I use sympathy. Sympathy requires that you condescend. See, the person that is sympathetic sees themselves on a higher level than the person that is lower, and then therefore is trying to help that person up. And I try to think of it as more of a empathetic thing where all of us are up in some areas and down in some areas. And though externally it may be more obvious, um, when you're homeless, that seems like a pretty specific set of issues, versus having some sort of uh, dark night of the soul, right? So that was one point that I wanted to make. And as far as to my point earlier about, I said that I'll take 50% responsibility for how I'm perceived, but I'm not going to take 100%. I've only adopted that because of my various administrative, responsibilities, jobs, and things where it's necessary to show some transparency in being willing to share certain information because it makes other people feel more comfortable. And then when they're more comfortable, they'll be more likely to give you what it is that you need them to give you at their highest capacity. I think I said before in one of these Getting Ish Done episodes that I am a natural A type leader. And that is, I already know what it is that I'm telling you to do. I've already done what it is that I'm telling you to do. Just do it this way. I don't need a lot of feedback from you. I just need you to do the job. Okay. I tend to be, and that's a pretty negative picture of an A leader. I mean, A leaders there's a lot of positive things about that. It's more efficient, for one, much more efficient. But I transform myself into more of a B leader because of the various creative kind of job situations I find myself in. I manage a lot of musicians, and even in my band, and the several bands that I lead, being more collaborative intentionally is a plus, because obviously you're trying to create something new, and it's better not to have to think of everything yourself, right? Now, if you think of everything yourself, then yeah, you can take the credit for it, but you're also not going to go anywhere. I mean, you'll go somewhere, and some folks have unusual amount of creativity and they can do quite a bit by themselves. But most folks, if you're going to actually get something happening, significant, you're going to have to figure out who it is that you can ally with, and be collaborative in some sense. So now I made those changes because I had perceptions that me being this task-oriented drill master that that has no feelings and has no compassion and all of this kind of stuff. You get to the point where I've heard this, dozens and dozens of times. Maybe some of what's being said is actually true, or at least it's so perceived that way that it might as well be true. It might as well be true with respect to the way that person's going to be able to receive something from you at all, or not. So
One,
It's tough because it's tough because in my heart of hearts, I'm kind of like, why should I have to do any of that? But in the real world, you're like, well, but I guess that's the game. And so it's part of the game. I try not to hate the game and hate the
mhm,
player instead.
100%. So in that particular regard, I'll say this and then we start landing the plane because I got to go pull one of those all-nighters. In that particular regard, I too have learned to be, and a lot of it I learned from performance. It is all a performance, right? Especially collaboration, leadership, and all that kind of stuff. Talking to people on YouTube, for example, it's a performance. I've learned to perform the extroverted feeling stuff, to laugh more, to kind of not that I don't laugh, but to kind of do it more with other people, and to perhaps even, shall we say, listen to what they have to say. But it's all a game for me. I listen, and I'm always listening, not with my heart. Okay, I'm listening very much with my head, and I have all my psychological and philosophical and meditation templates and all that, all my marvelous understanding of human nature. I'm kind of sifting everything they say through that, so that I can pick out some salient points to give them as feedback. Okay, and I find that that is effective for my type. I'm not going to be listening to you with my heart. Okay, but I'm going to do that. Well, that came across a little. I threw back the barbs in there.
No, I love it. I love it. That's great.
Yeah. The thing is, some people are feelers, and let them do their thing. Okay, I'm not listening to you in my heart, but I understand that listening is important and all that kind. And I'm actually a pretty good listener. Okay, I'm a salesperson. Like, so it's all a performance, right? In other words, right? Introverted type like myself, INTJ, introverted, focus on getting things done. Okay, but I sell, I convince, I communicate people, I persuade them. So I'm a very good listener, but it's not from this kind of empathetic way. By the way, my particular expertise, or what I'm good at in selling, I'm the closer. You see, the closer is not there to listen to the heart. The opener, the prospector, is the heart person. Okay, the prospector. And let me get a little. I'm going to put a little sales lesson here. That basically the prospector is the person that calls the client from time to time, knows the client's daughter's name and their dog's name, and knows the prospective client's daughter's and dog's name, and actually cares when they ask. My favorite example is about their daughter's softball game, because it actually happened. Okay, when a prospector, okay, brings me in to come and close somebody, right? And it's all still a game. I'm very good at the communication thing, but closers are more tacticians than just feelers. Okay, so when this particular lady, I remember her name is Lauren. Okay, she brought me in. She's the opener type, the prospector, the relationship type. She keeps the relationship warm with these people, and she was there talking for about 5 to 10 minutes about this guy's daughter's softball game, and I could not help but notice that she actually cared about the goddamn softball game. And I'm just like, I can't do, I will not be good at this. You got to know your lane. You got to know what you're good at. I don't give a crap about your daughter or her softball game, but I'm here to close this deal. And it also does take listening skills, empathy, reading people, all that kind of stuff, but it's very tactical. It's not from the heart. It's all in my head, right? That kind of thing. So I say that to say this, because it all comes back to self-awareness again. We're aware of the cards that we're dealt, right? And we're aware that the way people perceive us, it's Jordan Peterson, from an evolutionary standpoint, will say that they're correct. In other words, what the world tells you, like, you cannot tell people how they should see you. And my thinking side says yes. How can I tell you how you should see me? The way you see me is the way you see me, and it is true in that context, right? That is true. Okay, perception is what reality in that context, right? So, however, we need to be effective in the world. This is about getting ish done, after all, isn't it, Dr. Thunder? So you got to know the cards that you're dealt. Be self-aware, such that you then make what I use a particular thing which I'm very good at, which is how to maneuver things in the world. I use it to be empathetic to people. It's not going to come from, my empathy does not come from my heart. My empathy comes from understanding, right? And I believe, you say that sympathy, I believe it's better than sympathy. Sympathy tends to be closer to the heart, right? And empathy tends to come more from understanding. So I'm going to say something, and then I'll give you the last word. It seems to me that something has taken shape here, that if there is a peak in this landscape, we've been roaming around the landscape of the pride problem, the ego problem, the, shall we say, humility or lack thereof issue, the arrogance problem. Okay. I would say that the pride problem, the ego problem, the arrogance problem, these are all lowlands around something which we should be shooting for. And that peak, that is the highland, is self-awareness. So what do you have to say, Dr. Thunder, in closing?
Yeah, well, great show. It was a good topic again. I don't think, because I was trying to get you to provide. So I was saying that there seems to be different ways that this pride word is used.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, you were saying that, so if pride is wrong, then how come it's okay to use it in this context, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying that I'm not altogether sure that the same thing is meant by the words, by the use of that same word.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe aspects of it are the same. Maybe the self-awareness component is different, depending on how it is used. And I was still dealing with this desire to have some sort of quantitative
thing, some
thing.
table where you can definitely say, don't worry, I'll put it in. I'll give you the answer in my book. No, I understand, but I think that we've made progress in the course of an hour to be able to
Yes.
even spot the lowlands and then say, oh, the highland is self-awareness, and all these other places are just ways of missing self-awareness. This arrogance, this ego problem, this what people call pride, but it's a pride problem, right? As we've kind of defined it. These are all just lowlands, but the place that they should be going for is the self-awareness, which makes it such that you're not caught up in your feelings and therefore manifesting bad behaviors, which people tend to see, and then it's ineffective and it doesn't get you what you want, so therefore it's pragmatically bad and a sin. You are missing the mark, right? So after you create that kind of a thing, now I think that we can go into the particulars of, well, if when I say I'm proud of my of my saxophone playing, is it the same thing as when I call somebody else that man is a proud man in a bad way, right? Am I saying the same thing? And is it one of those things where, oh, it's arrogance when it's out there, but when it's in me, it's nice, justified pride,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We haven't even brought that other dimension into it.
Yeah.
We started about it. We were talking about how people view and so on and so forth, but we talked about that from an ego perspective. But definitely, I think that when we lay out the map like that, then we can start to measure it and say, okay, well, these are your quantitative things. But don't worry, we'll get there at some point if we don't bore the audience to death.
So you said the thing about you don't listen with your heart. And okay, so I just wanted to pull a few of these things apart. When people say stuff like follow your heart, this such and such a person has a big heart, really what it is that they're talking about is they're still thoughts. see, because all things that we perceive as feelings, they're taking place in the brain also. Everything is a thought. It's just some thoughts, the way they, let's see, some thoughts we have less issues separating certain maybe physical feelings. But everything is taking place in the brain. And so for instance, the Bible talks about the heart. It says that the heart is wicked and deceitful above all, and who can know it? It goes on further to say that whoever trusts in the heart is a fool. So being sort of led around by your heart isn't altogether a good thing. Now, yeah, I think having some compassion is a valuable thing, and however you come to that. So if your way to empath is not intertwined with this wicked and deceitful aspect of yourself that all of us struggle with, then that seems to me to be a better strategy. And after all, listening is not done with the heart, is it?
100%. And I like what is over there. It talks about that dimension of in me and in you, or also the fact that, if you're proud, that perhaps the justified pride is again, going back to my whole localized thing, but this person in the chat is localizing it differently. And it has nothing to do with somebody else. That it becomes arrogance when, oh, I'm better than you because I did a good job. And it's justified pride if I did a good job, so I'm proud. But if I'm now using it as a weapon in the landscape of interpersonal relationships and politics, then it becomes a problem. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that we have adequately laid out a beginning map for clarifying things with words such as pride, words such as ego, and we should understand that there's a pride problem, and it's not the word pride, and that there's an ego problem, and it's not the word ego, and that in all these problems there tends to be a presence, or shall I say, a lack of the presence of self-awareness, or the presence of you being caught completely in yourself. I in sin, according to Dr. Thunder over there. But yes, so until next time, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Until next time, maybe I'll be here tomorrow, maybe on Thursday, but definitely we'll be back again next week with Dr. Thunder, right? We'll be back again, and maybe I'll have a K Polymath episode over the weekend, and we can talk about his struggles in Africa. And
I think we're going to do a show, you and I. It's going to be on your channel on Sunday at 4, since we're not going to have a case closed. So
Indeed.
I think what we're doing is on the off weeks we're
alternating.
So
100%. Yes, we don't know what we're going to talk about. Maybe we'll continue this conversation. Maybe we'll satisfy your need to have quantitative markers on this particular thing which we discussed. But until then, laters, ladies and gentlemen, always a pleasure. Peace.
in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What was behind the curtain? The face of evil lurking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. Hey, I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming and countenances falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised. The battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest and the righteous in your corners.